Hello and welcome, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Crash, and today we are taking a look at the newbies from Shonen Jump from last year. We're going to be ranking them from worst to best we did last year, and just like last year, I have with me Axel. Do you want to say hello?
Hello. Thanks for having me back, Crash. Always fun to rank these, especially. I don't know. It's fun just glancing over what comes out over the year in Shonen Jump, and there were some bangers this year, and there were some absolute garbage series this year on top of it. So
In my opinion, there was only like one really bad series. We'll get into that in a little bit. But yeah, like we did this last year. I planned on doing this year with you as well, but I was surprised to see that a bunch of people actually asked both me and you if we were doing it. That was a nice surprise for me. And so the way this works for everyone that didn't tune in last year is that I asked a bunch of people last month to vote for their top 3 favorite newbies of the year and their bottom 3. For every vote, positive vote, there was a positive point. For every negative vote, there was a negative point. And then I just joined them together. So there's going to be series that are going to have negative points. There's going to be series that are going to have positive points. And then from that, we got a list from all the users. But then both me and Axel did our own lists of our worst to best of the year. And then we average them out all together, and that's going to be the list that we're going to go through today. But for every title, I'm going to mention which series is where that series ranked on my list, on Axel's list, and on the voters list, as well as giving some cool stats about the voters list, because I like doing that. And the first stat that I want to just point out is that last year we had 43 votes, and it kind of makes sense. I had like 1,000 subscribers. This year, I wanted to reach at least 100, because I thought, I have a little bit more than double. I want to have a little bit more than double the votes. But we had 205 votes totally. I couldn't count all of them, but it was still around 200 that I could count. So I'm still happy with that. I'm really happy with that. So thanks to everyone.
It's a much bigger sample size this year, so yeah. That's definitely good.
Although I do want to say, from the start, the top one and the bottom one and the top 3 seemed very clear. Like the votes, a lot of the votes were the same. But we'll get into that.
I'm not surprised.
Yeah.
Just given the year, and obviously we'll get into it, but given the year that we've had for Shonen Jump, it's pretty obvious what's kind of towards the top and what's not towards the top.
There was a couple series that were controversial. They were getting a lot of negative and a lot of positive votes, but overall, I think there was a clear winner and a clear loser. And I guess we can start with the clear loser. At number 11, we have EarthChild. It got number 11 on the voters list, number 11 on your list, and number 11 on my list. So it was
clear consensus. All right.
And it got a total of negative 120 votes. So
wow.
There was 129 people voting for least favorite, which is almost double the amount of negative votes compared to the second most voted for negative points. But 9 people did say that they liked EarthChild as one of their favorite. So and that's another thing that I want to point out. Just because one manga is on one position or the other on the list, there was at least a positive vote and at least a negative vote for every single manga on this list. So regardless of your opinion, there's at least someone else that agrees with you. But yeah, EarthChild was the worst.
It's my god. It's not like the series was entirely wrong, but the point for me where it went ridiculous and I was just like, no, was the part when they went up to the moon and then the next chapter they immediately came back down. Or sorry, not the moon, but into space to the satellite.
Yeah.
They went up to the satellite, as dangerous as that was, and they're like, oh, Mamoru needs to make a connection with his grandparents so he can appreciate his mother. Let's go back down to Earth. And I'm just like, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Are you kidding me right now?
That to me was like the worst part as well. Because we got kind of like a big build up to how dangerous the trip was going to be and everything. And first of all, we skipped the trip, basically. They were on the Earth and then they were in space. And then, I think it was in the exact same chapter. Like at the end of the same chapter, they were like, "Oh, we need to go back after all." And I don't know, that is just the biggest example of how much of a mess everything in the manga was. I think like my favorite part of the manga was the very first chapter. I was actually very positive towards it in my first thoughts video that I did. Even in that video I said like I have zero idea how this is going to go from here. I don't have like very high expectations that it's going to go well. And it did worse than I expected. Like much worse than I expected.
Yeah. I agree. It was one of those things like the first chapter was good. I think even like in the mindset of like a one shot, it was good.
Yeah. Exactly.
But it really it wanted to do too much too fast, I think, and it just I feel like the first chapter would be way better if it was a volume long manga and then it ended. I think that would be my ideal EarthChild. I would probably love if that was the case, but the majority of the manga was just a big mess. I think it was one of the worst messes I've seen in Jump, honestly. There's manga that I like less, but not one that I think it was worse structured, I think. Yeah, no, I can definitely agree with that. It just... It had positive messages to give. It's not like it was an absolute... Again, it wasn't one of those things where there's only negatives to be said about it. Like, the family dynamic was good. The fact that the husband, the main character, was doing everything that he can to save his wife and, make sure that his child did not, repeat what his wife went through. I think that was great. But again, it was just one of those things where they did not handle it well, and that's just why we're here today.
Yeah. I think the manga had some art to it, but the author just really knew what to do with the characters in the story. And I don't know if it was the author, if it was the editor, something there was very, very wrong.
Probably a combination of the two, honestly speaking.
Yeah, I think the editor was known for a bunch of canceled manga. I don't actually remember. I remember when people talking about it, I think, at the time. But I don't actually remember.
So
right now.
I mean, the thing is, it's hard to keep track of it because Shonen Jump does not keep a running list of what their editors were in charge of because they're trying to maintain some level of anonymity to, again, like protect the editors where, they are on the series that get canceled again and again and again. Yeah. It's just, and sometimes it's not the fault of the editor. Sometimes it's the state of the magazine itself, and just this was a tough year for Jump because the magazine is full. Yeah,
and if you're an editor in Jump, having in mind that most manga that get cancelled, you're always gonna have a big backlog of canceled manga on your back. At least that's what I feel. But actually, I want to point this out in terms of like canceled manga compared to like last year, where we had at the end of the year we had like 5 ongoings, maybe. This year, most manga that started this year is still ongoing. I don't know for how long. I don't think it's gonna be for much longer. But we had like 3 canceled manga out of the 11. So everything else is still ongoing.
To be fair, we also only had 11 new series this year, and
last year
the last 4 of them were at the very end of this year.
Yeah. And even I think the batch before was not that long ago either. So, yeah, I think it's like 6 of them still haven't reached the point where they should be cancelled. Moving on to number 10 then, we have one of those, which is Tokyo Demon Bride Story. That one ranked number 10 on the votes, number 9 on your list, and then number 8 on mine. And it got like negative 62 points on the voters list. I was kind of surprised how much, I mean, I wasn't too surprised how much people voted too negatively on it. But it has slowly grown on me in the sense that I don't think it's like a great series, but I don't think it's too bad either.
It's one of those. So this is another one of the series that it won an award, and then because it won an award, it got to be published in the magazine, and it's another one of those award-winning cursed series, honestly. It's right up there with Red Hood in terms of, like, it won an award, it got printed within like a year of it getting an award, and it's just kind of failing to hit an audience. It literally became like a Monster Girl waifu of the week.
Yeah.
Series,
I feel
unfortunately.
Like, I've been saying this, I feel like the audience for Tokyo Demon Bride is more or less the same audience of Witch Watch. I think that series are a little bit similar, but inverse, where instead of being like a female character with a bunch of like supernatural boys, it's a male character with a bunch of supernatural girls.
So the regular harem format.
Exactly. But I feel like the things that it does well, and that at least the things that I like about Tokyo Demon Bride, I can see that Witch Watch is also doing them much better. So, like, if it gets cancelled, which most likely it will, having in mind the positions that is getting, I'm not gonna be sad, because there's not really much that the series is doing that is unique to it in the magazine. And
yeah, it's not.
I think that's probably why a lot of people also kind of voted it as one of the bottom.
I don't know. I'm disappointed because this was another one where people enjoyed the one shot, just like they did for Red Hood, just like they did for Phantom Seer, and then it gets printed in the magazine and it just fails to succeed.
Yeah. But I will say, like, with Redwood, I can see how people may like the one shot and then jumping into the serialization. I feel like after like chapter 3, there was a lot of like things going wrong with the series. With Tokyo Demon, I feel like the story is still more or less the same of what you should expect from chapter 1. I feel like if you really enjoyed chapter 1, you should really enjoy the rest of the series. I was a little bit mad with it. So I'm not like super into it, and I don't know how the one shot compared to the first chapter. I know a lot of times they tend to be very, very similar.
It was.
Yeah. So I don't see people really liking the one shot and then not liking series, unless it's just because it gets a little bit tiring because it is more of the same. But yeah, other than that, I don't think it was the worst. But I mean, it wasn't. Your EarthChild was.
Well, obviously, it wasn't the worst. That spot already got taken handily.
On number 9, we got Ichigoki's Out of Control. That one ranked number 9 on the voters list, number 9 on my list, and number 8 on yours. So, Tokyo and Ichigoki's were kind of swapped in our lists. This one was one that a lot of people, like on my Discord server, I don't know if you were paying attention to that, they really liked it. And to a degree I can understand why. My channel has always been quite positive towards the gag manga. Roboko, Shugomaru, everything like that. I really liked the gag manga of the magazine. This one, I didn't.
I can see it. So, I guess again, for people that don't know, this is by the same author of I'm From Japan, which was a manga that ran alongside Teenage Renaissance David-kun, however many years ago, and then it got moved to a different magazine because the Department of Tourism in Japan was like, hey, keep publishing this.
Yeah.
We need this.
I've actually done a full video on it on my channel. If people want to check it out, probably link it on description or at the end of the video. But yeah, it was a
so this, again, by the same author, it's one of those ones where it's an absurdity type gag manga rather than a subtle one. This is like on a scale of High School Family to Mori King, this is more of a Mori King than a High School Family.
If not past Mori King, honestly.
Past Mori King, yes. I don't know. It's one where I've grown on it a bit, but I did not like that first chapter. I'm going to be completely honest. I had a similar mindset, and despite that, I still rank it low because I didn't want to put it above certain other series that are longer ongoing series, and I definitely didn't want to put it above anything else in the new batch, but it hasn't done anything to me yet that makes it worse outright compared to the other three that I ranked below it. And that's, yeah.
I see. I've also been growing a little bit to it, but I still can't like, or I'm liking a little bit more, but the characters. The main character, and especially the little girl, were very annoying for the first couple of chapters. I'm warming up to them, especially. I think the girl is the worst. You need to either like her or you hate the series.
I warmed up to the main character. I have not warmed up to her yet because, like, again, she literally plays the smart dum-dum. She is super smart, but also super dumb. Yeah. And she can be endearing, but yeah, it's kind of ridiculous. I do like the best friend Flower. He is a doofus, but like I enjoy him. And then the student council president, she's interesting, albeit very stereotypical. So I'm very interested to see how things shape up, because the side characters can definitely make or break this series. And I feel like that's the same for almost any gag manga, where you do need to have somewhat of a strong enough supporting cast. Obviously, you do need to have, the main characters be interesting enough, but they still have to play off other characters. Yeah,
especially this kind of series where the plot does not matter at all. It is really the characters that carry it through. And I think that's why I ranked it so low. I still don't care too much about the characters. But on number 8, we got Super Smartphone, which ranked number 8 on the voters list, number 5 on mine, and number 10 on yours. This was the one that we really disagreed with each other, I feel. And it got, I do want to point out, it got negative 42, and Ichigoki's, I don't think I mentioned, but got negative 56. But Super Smartphone was the second one, or the one that got the most negative votes after EarthChild. But contrary to the other two, it actually got a bunch of people voting positive towards it, which is why it ranked a little bit higher. So it was one where there's definitely a lot of fans of it. I personally think it was overall a good manga. I still really like the first half. I really like the smartphone and the way that they go about it, learning the rules and everything, the mysteries. I don't like the Gugu smartphone name. I feel like that is kind of dumb. But once you get past that, I think it's a good series. Some characters are like the main villain. I think was the weakest part of the series, in my opinion. But overall, I still like it, and I think even the ending was okay. Of course, it was, you know. I think this was one of them where they're gonna actually release more chapters later on, if I'm not wrong.
They took the Build King route with this one, and supposedly they were going to include more chapters in the final volume release.
Yeah.
I don't think the final volume has come out yet. I could be very wrong in that regard. But I mean, even then, somebody's going to have to pay translators to even want to touch it, because, like, Shueisha on the Western side, they didn't translate the final chapters of Build King in either the Shonen Jump app or the Jump Plus app. It's like, they clearly didn't even care that, like, there were extra chapters. They didn't even touch it. So, like, I can't believe this. Somebody willingly paid to have the final chapters of Build King translated.
Because, you know, it got translated in the volume, like the digital volumes, right? That you can buy individually on the Viz app. Oh, not the Viz app, on the Viz website. I think so. I might be wrong, but I
would imagine so.
Yeah.
Yeah. They just didn't bother putting the chapters in the
apps,
the regular chapter spots, but it is what it is. You're not missing much if you don't read them.
I haven't. I kind of want to read it just to put Build King uncompleted, because it is on my list. It's still like on hold because I haven't read those final chapters. I just want to like give a small victory to me, because Gravity Boys got their extra chapter published on the Manga Plus. So
that being said, the reason why I ranked Super Smartphone at number 10 is just I could not forgive the second half of that manga. Like, the first half, like, what they were doing in the first half was really interesting. I actually really enjoyed Super Smartphone at the beginning. And then once they revealed, like, here's, like, all the different smartphone users and whatnot, and then, like, they paired him up with, honestly speaking, two very boring characters. Like, two very stereotypical boring characters. I was just like, this is... no. And they spent so much time, so much unnecessary time with them, that, like, it's just like, okay, you are wasting your borrowed time that you have in this magazine left. And the way the aliens were weird, the short guy and the really, really busty woman, and then tying it into just like, oh, well, the main villain apparently had ties to killing everyone involved in the smartphone thing.
Yeah, I feel like that was a more interesting plot twist if it was revealed slowly, but because we really didn't have... I mean, we had some hints of it, that Shu, I think was his character, the brother of the main character, was involved with him. But it did came out of nowhere, because the manga was getting canceled, I guess. The reveal that the Super Smartphone was actually like the dead person and whatever was also out of nowhere with zero build up. Was kind of stupid. But those are like always the kind of stories where I feel like I kind of feel sorry for the author, because it's clear that with decent build up on these series that they had in mind, it would have worked at least a little bit better. But because they only have like these 3 or 4 chapters and they still want to do those things, it just comes out of nowhere. That's what always happens, or almost always happens with canceled manga. The second half, I don't know. These 2 side characters I also wasn't too keen on, but I also wasn't too bothered with, if that makes sense. So it still ranked midway in my overall list.
And that's fair. I respect your placement on it. It's just I don't know. I felt so burnt by it by the end. I was just like, no. It just
it
hurt.
Know. I get it.
It hurt.
Maybe because I actually binged the second half of Super Smartphone Alien Zeri, because by the time that they concluded, I was like 5 or 6 weeks late on every series on Shonen Jump besides One Piece. So I kind of binged those.
For everything that we have on this list, I read it week to week. So yeah. I have been up to date on all of these and just...
Yeah, I try to, but I can't. So what happens normally is that every 3 weeks I read everything. That's more or less what happens. But yeah, number 7. We got Cipher Academy, which was on number 6 on the voters list, number 7 on mine, and number 6 on yours. And this one I think was the most controversial.
So it had 2 6th places and one 7th place, but it still came in 7th?
It still came in 7th because the others...
You ranked something high, didn't you?
Yeah.
This is on you.
Actually, it was... it was on you. Because we'll get into that.
What?
No,
because okay. I ranked something high.
You ranked something really high, and I ranked something really high, and because of that, 2 that should probably be before Cipher Academy kind of overcame it. I don't know. I don't know verbs.
Okay, I got it.
But this one, it got -6 votes, but I think it was the one that got the closest, because it got 38 negative votes and 32 positive votes. So it was very, very tied. And I can see why. Being caught up with it now, I kind of like it a lot more than I like the first chapter or the first 2 chapters. I still think my major problem with the first chapter is still in it, and it will continue to be in it, which is, for Western fans that don't know Japanese, more than half of the puzzles are not going to make sense. Some of them are. They're like, I remember the trill, like the key puzzle, like, and the Tetris puzzle. I kind of could solve those on my own, and that was fun. That I could solve those, but the big puzzles tend to be very Japanese based on like the alphabet and everything. I feel like Inui Sin, being a writer first and foremost, really loves that word puzzles. So yeah, it kind of ruins a little bit of the fun for me.
It's a series that, honestly speaking, is too smart for its own good, which is unfortunate, because obviously the point of it is that, like, these are students that are in an elite code-breaking school, so they have to be tested to the highest degree in terms of breaking codes. But like you said, a lot of them are in Japanese. So at least for the Western audience, because things can't just be, edited over so that, like, we replace kanji or whatever with, like, English letters, like, that becomes a problem. I think even for the ones where they are mostly in English, or they're shape-based or whatnot, the unfortunate thing is, for most people, they're not going to sit there like they would a Sunday paper to, go through the crosswords or whatever. Like, most people, they will take they're like 5 to 15 minutes to read a chapter of manga, and then they move on to the next one. So for a lot of people, they're not gonna sit there and like try and figure out the puzzles themselves. They'll just read through it and be like, oh, okay, so this is how they do it. Which, to what you said before, like I've warmed up to it more in these more recent chapters because they're developing upon the characters more. And because of that, we're getting to see them and how they react to the puzzles and how they figure them out, which makes up for the fact that we ourselves can't in a reasonable amount of time if we're trying to read other things and get along with our day. So yeah, it's a really smart manga, but because of that, it's not going to connect as well, at least on the Western side, I think.
Yeah, and yeah, I do think the main character is getting better as well. Like you said, they're developing the characters. I really didn't get his position in the story in the first couple of chapters, especially because to me it doesn't make any sense that an elite school for the best of the best gets a guy who can't solve puzzles, and the guy joins just because he doesn't know, anything, doesn't have anything else, like he doesn't have a goal or anything like that. That really hurt me because I was like, why do I care about this character then? Like, because there's zero reasons.
They literally took the stereotypical, oh, we need a token male in an all-female school/class setting, and they applied it here. Like, yeah. That is what it boils down to in the end, is that it's another one of those instances where it's just a male planted in an all-female environment. And to that extent, I'm still not a fan of his character design, at least when he has his hair down. I really wish they would have just let him have his hair in a ponytail at all times, and then just put on the glasses when he needs to put on the glasses. When he did finally put them on for the first time, I was just like, okay, this is a main character design that I like. This I like. The random just bob, it doesn't do it for me. I know that's a thing that Nisio Isan likes sometimes for his characters, but I just
Yeah, I think there's a lot of like more cool designs with the side characters. There's way too many side characters that I'm supposed to know, which is kind of like a problem. I feel like even with Medaka Box was a little bit of a problem, where they introduced like 1 billion characters, and he would have this page where he tells you all about them, and then you're supposed to remember all of them for the rest of the series. And what ended up happening was that by the end of Medaka, I remembered like 5 characters that I liked, and that's probably what's going to happen with this one as well.
Well, we'll see, depending on how long it lasts. Yeah. If you even build a connection with those amount of people. And that is a struggle for any classroom-based series, where you will have certain characters that are more developed than others, and, that has its own problems. Honestly speaking, the only modern classroom-based series where I like almost every single character because of how they developed it is Welcome to Demon School Iruma-kun. That is the only one. Like, everything else, like, it has... And not that Iruma doesn't have heavy favoritism towards certain characters, but, like, compared to... I'll just put it out there, My Hero Academia, where, let's be honest, they focus on, like, 6 characters, they kind of developed on a few more, and then they waited till now to finally give us more on a few other characters. It's kind of like...
Yeah, you reach a point where you don't care. But I think even with the classes that I like for example, Assassination Classroom, it's where I think it did a better job of developing everything towards the end. It's still hard. I don't think it's Modern Classic because it's pretty old by this point. But the only one that I remember that I enjoyed, that was like class-based, and I enjoyed every single character, was School Rumble. That's like 2005.
Yeah.
It's like, I still compare it, like, it's like Kami-san done better, in my opinion. And on number 6, we got Aliens Area, the final cancelled manga of the bunch, which ranked number 7 on the voters, number 6 on mine, and number 5 on yours. And it got negative 8 points on the voters list because it was lower than Cipher Academy. I was confused for a second on my own methods. I know a lot of people who really, really love Aliens Area. Doofy, if he reached to this point, or if he just
I was
skipped
gonna say,
this
had you
point.
not mentioned Doofy, I mean,
He really, really loves it.
I think Doofy is the last remaining holdout on Aliens Area, at least adamantly so. Other people that I know that were really standing for Aliens Area towards the beginning have kind of gone dark and silent at this point. And
But I want to say, I didn't like Aliens Area at the beginning, and I liked it towards the end.
Same.
I feel like once it got past the... once it started like being more about the alien life and everything, and not so much about the battle system and everything, that was really when I got invested into the series. Partially also why I kind of ranked it lower than Super Smartphone was because half of the manga is still battle shonen, and I didn't care. It's not that I hated it. I don't think it was bad, but it just wasn't as good as or as interesting as everything else that is on the magazine right now. The other parts, however, were.
It is always super difficult for a sci-fi series to do well in Shonen Jump. That's just how it is. The vast majority of people enjoy fantasy, they enjoy supernatural. Sci-fi is a very hard sell. And part of the reason for it is that for sci-fi, you typically have to create certain things. You have to create the parameters yourself for the technological aspects of it. And I think Aliens Area did pretty well in that regard. I thought that the technology that they had was very interesting. It's just, you either really loved the two main characters or you didn't. And I enjoyed the lead scientist more than I enjoyed the high schooler. I admired what the high schooler did in regards to, protecting his family and whatnot, but there wasn't necessarily, at least for me, there wasn't more to it than that. And partly because, we only had 20-some chapters for it, like, we couldn't necessarily dive deeper into the main characters' interests, hobbies, things like that. Things that can give them more uniqueness to their characters. And the side characters that we got were very limited in their scope of what they did as well, which was unfortunate. I think halfway through is definitely where I started to appreciate it more. With the assassination attempt, I think was definitely the highlight. No. The assassination attempt, I think, was the second highest point of the series, with the highest point being the bar fire created by that one enemy. I thought that was really well done. What really the most unfortunate thing, in my opinion, towards the end, was relegating the handling of the one squad murderer to the assassin that they fought earlier in the series for no apparent reason. All of a sudden he's just there and it's like, hey, you settle the score with this guy that has no relation to you whatsoever. It was just like, okay, all this build up for nothing. Even then, I still had to rank it higher than everything other than 4 series, just because it did, for the most part, properly conclude. And because of that, there were more positives than negatives, in my opinion. I could not personally rank it lower than Cipher Academy and Fabricant 100 and Ichigoki, just because those three still have more to prove, in my opinion. I mean, they only have a handful of chapters in comparison. But for the complaints that I had, I still did enjoy Aliens Area for what it was, but I did have my complaints.
Yeah, I think I'm the same. Again, but my most complaints, I do agree with what you said for the final arc. And yeah, just wasn't the most interesting battle shonen, like I said before. But everything else was good.
I almost wish it wasn't a battle shonen.
I agree.
Had they almost made it more slice of life centric, that could have been interesting. But I mean, I say that despite the fact that, like I said, the two highest points for me were, well, one of them was battle shonen, and then the other one was mystery/drama. So
yeah,
damn.
But I don't think it would do better in the magazine if it was a slice of life.
True.
I think
yeah.
On number 5, we got Ginka Gluna, which ranked on number 5 on the voters list, on number 2 on yours, and on number 10 on mine. If it was just me and the voters list, this was so much lower, and then you just pushed it back to number 5.
Damn right I did.
This is what I was talking about before we started recording, about how our lists being different averaged it out so that it was the same as the voters list almost. And it got it got 14 positive votes overall. Got 35 positive, 21 negative. I guess
Bash, plead your case.
Yeah, I guess
plead your case, and I'll tell you how you're wrong.
I just have one complaint, and to be fair, I do feel like it is being resolved in the last 4 or so chapters, which is the pacing. I feel like the pacing of the pacing of the first chapter wasn't really that good. I think it should have been 2 chapters in my opinion. And then from there on out till we reached the guild, everything was so fast paced that I couldn't be invested into the story, and I feel like that is kind of where it loses me more so than any other flaw, is that if I stop being invested into the characters or the plot, which I really couldn't get into anything, because once I got into a part that I thought was interesting, it already had ended. So when it does that, it just really, really loses me, which is why I think fast pacing a lot of times is even worse than slow pacing. Not always. Redwood, I complained so much about the slow pacing of it all, so but I feel like it can be so much detrimental to it. And yeah, even now it is getting better. I feel like it's getting slower. The last battle that happened was interesting. And for all his word, I like Ginka. I like the character and his design. Luna, I'm not as invested yet, nor do I like her design that much, to be honest. I kind of liked her pre-time skip design a little bit better, but it is what it is. But because it is only getting better like now, I'm still not completely invested into it. I couldn't really rank it much higher. If we did the list maybe a couple months from now, if it continues, maybe it will be higher. That is to say, if it doesn't get cancelled, which I don't know. It seems like it gets slower on the list, but it also gets color pages, so for now it seems like it is safe. I don't know.
Nothing is a guarantee unfortunately. That's just kind of how the magazine is. But yes, you are right. It's actually gotten several color pages. So whether that is a positive sign of it actually surviving the next Axe round, we'll have to wait and see. I mean, we won't have to wait and see for Tokyo Demon Bride. I mean, that's gone. Like that, there's no saving that at this point. But because there has been a change in the color page trend, where it used to be where you got your lead colors and you got a color page in your second chapter, and then you didn't get anything after that unless you were doing well. And then last year, they made it where every series got at least one more color page anywhere between chapter 6 to like chapter 11. So they got 2 color pages. Both Ginka Gluna and Tokyo Demon Bride got their extra color page. That was part of that. But then Ginka Gluna got an additional color page after that.
Quite recently as well, I think.
Yeah. So, I mean, that being said, it would seem at least that Ginka and Gluna is on better footing than Tokyo Demon Bride is. But neither of them have sold their first volume yet, so we don't have that information. They don't have their first volume sales until February, which is concerning for me. Waiting that many chapters in to see how it's selling, I don't think that's a good sign. But that's another story entirely. I agree with your concerns on pacing. When you consider everything else to an extent, when you consider the vast majority of other series, there are ones that have a lot more build-up early on. They might not necessarily drag things out like past. They might not drag things out for like the first couple chapters. They might have it where they're like doing like wham bam couple things in like one chapter story and done, but then they kind of build upon things after that. Ginka and Gluna was definitely one where it was 1 or 2 chapters for anything that they did, and it was more so an exploration of the world and magic, and just kind of showing us different examples of that with places that they went to. I think once they found Minigin for the first time, it definitely added more dimension to the Ginka plotline of finding his pieces and, you know, bringing him back to where he needs to be. But going to the guild finally gave them another plot line to explore. The reason why I have it as high as I do is that overall I do really enjoy it. I enjoy the characters, even if some of them aren't necessarily as developed as they could be in terms of the side characters that they have in their group. But I enjoy seeing Ginka and Gluna in action. I think the unfortunate thing to an extent is that Ginka has more or less had to take on everybody. But at the same time, when you think about the context, he's had to take on heavy hitters left and right from like the get-go in terms of like powerful magicians where he had to take them out, or like super intense situations that only he had the magic for, which take it or leave it on that. It's just kind of how they developed it at this point. I want to see the girls do more moving forward, and I hope that they do. But, you know, again, to the pacing side of things, you know, that is a perceivable issue with it. I guess this is the part where I'm blunt. Looking at the rest of the list, at least for right now, because we've only had a few chapters of the last 4 batch, it was kind of a weaker year for Shonen Jump for me. So that was one of those things where it's just like the bar was low. Not saying that Ginka and Gluna was a low bar itself, but it was very easy for it to pass that bar. There's one other series that we haven't talked about that, you know, has had more chapters but had its unfortunate experience. And then one rookie I am ranking high enough, but like, just overall, it was a weaker year for Shonen Jump, and part of that too is just the fact that the magazine was full. Whatever for the most part was getting introduced in the magazine was getting axed like 3 volumes in.
Yeah.
So there wasn't a lot of series that could spread their wings because, 1, they didn't print a lot, and 2, what they did print, say for one series, all got axed within 3 volumes.
Yeah.
And is very likely the case for probably a majority of the new 4 that we just got.
That scares me because I really like the new batch. Number 4, we got Fabricant 100, which got number 4 on the voters list, number 3 on my list, and number 7 on yours. I do want to give an asterisk on the voters list. It got number 4, but it was by far the least voted, both positive or negative, in the list. It got a total of 40 votes, where everything else got like 70 or more. So that's
so essentially
why,
it was more neutral.
Yeah, that is also why it kind of climbed, because most of the few people that voted positive. So it still got positive 20 votes overall. Personally, I'm really liking it though. I think it's still like, it makes sense that very few people are voting for it, and even that you're ranking it so low, because it's the newest manga. It is the one that has the least amount of chapters. I think it has like 6 as of today, and probably
Is it
6 or 7, or maybe 5.
I think it's lower than that, honestly. I'm double checking. Up to 5.
5. So yeah.
Yesterday, as of the day that we are recording this, it was up to 5.
Yeah. So it kind of makes sense that you don't want to rank that high. This for me was a little bit of the case of what you were talking about with Ginka Gluna, which was that it was easy to climb the ladder, and because I've really enjoyed the chapters that we got so far, it was easy for me to rank it on top 3. I really like the main character, and I really like the girl, the woman. I think I really love that relationship. I am still a little bit on the fence on the developments of the last 2 chapters, which seem to be what the story is going to be about going forward. But overall, I like the world, I like the concept, I like the characters, I like the mystery, so yeah. It was easy to reach number 3.
The reason why I have it at 7, below Cipher Academy, is most of my interest, to be fair, is on Fabricant 100 herself, and then the human characters that were just kind of introduced. The main character, our little boy, it's there's not necessarily a whole lot to himself yet, other than the fact that, like, oh, he comes from a very weird family that, like, all lived to be hundreds of years old, and he was like the baby boy, and his blood and his body are like heavily desired by the Fabricants, and he is kind of like, I'm in this unfortunate position where I want revenge, kind of thing. And we see his resolve, but like, he himself can't necessarily do anything himself.
Yeah.
So Fabricant 100 has to do things, and at least in the last chapter, like the last 2 chapters, we've gotten to see more from her. We've finally gotten to see truly that sinister side, that conniving side to her. and like a little bit more backstory on the world, and I think that's very interesting. But I'm waiting to see more for my own personal opinion to further develop on it. Because at least at this time, I'm enjoying Cipher Academy just that little bit more in comparison, but we'll see what happens. It's definitely got like a Full Metal Alchemist-ish vibe to it, and that is what a lot of other people have said for it as well.
It happens more or less around the same time, I guess.
It feels like that, yeah. It's a very similar time period. So, yeah, I want it to do well. Whether or not it does depends on Shonen Jump, but at the same time, as I've said unfortunately several times, the magazine is full.
It is
so
full though, because it has like 23 series right now.
It was up to 22.
Yeah.
It was up to 22 if you included Hunter, and Ruri Dragon, I think.
I think it's 23 with those, if I'm not wrong.
We're at 22 counting Ruri Dragon, 23 counting Hunter. Hunter has bowed out because of, well, it going into whatever kind of print consistency, if there even is one after this. Ruri Dragon is included despite the fact that they really haven't done anything or even told us anything on if it or not it will return to the magazine itself or if it'll be part of Jump Plus. So if you don't count those two, we're at 21 series, and the magazine is normally at like 20. So, unless Jump does what I've wanted them to do for a while and increase the amount of series that they have so more series can have regular breaks, we're going to be getting more cuts.
Yeah.
Especially if they try to introduce anything else. Depending on how many series that they introduce is probably the amount of series that they will axe, if not that many plus one.
And I'd love them to do what you suggested, but I don't have any hopes for it. Really, like zero hopes that's the thing they're going for. Okay, so moving into the top 3, and I just want to, like, before I reveal it, I just want to say, like, I think 1/3 of the votes, of all the votes, was just these 3. I forgot. It was getting to the point where I didn't know if I counted the votes or not, because it was like 3, 4, 5, 6 on a row, just these three. And there was very few manga, or very few people who voted for 3 manga that wasn't at least one of these. So on the number 3, we got the Ichinose Family's Deadly Scenes. It got number 3 on the voters list, number 4 on mine, and number 4 on yours as well. And it got a total of 82 positive votes, which was 95 positive and 13 negative. This was the other one where a lot of people in my Discord server were discussing it, and everyone hated it. I assumed like half of the negative points that we got on this was from people from my server.
Oh, that's funny. I can see it.
I really liked it, the first chapter, or rather, I think like the first 3 chapters, I really liked it. It's slowly been losing me. Chapter number 4 was structured in such a weird, confusing way, where it was kind of like a flashback, but it was really hard to understand what was happening there. If it was like a memory that it was getting, it was just a flashback that the boy had no context of. And then from there on out, I feel like there's been some really good stuff and some really questionable choices. I think the main problem that I've seen people saying on the Discord server, which wasn't really a problem for me, was the way that the bullying was represented. If you liked Takopi, it was similar. If you like a silent voice, to a degree, it was similar. I really feel like the bullying that is shown in this manga is very much the kind of bullying that is shown in most manga that are about bullying. And sure, it is, I want to say it is over the top, because I got bullied as a kid and I wasn't nearly as bad as this, nor have I seen even like other people get bullied worse than me. I don't think they were bullied as bad as like people get bullied in manga. But also I don't know how bullying is in Japan, so...
I could definitely say bullying can get to that level in America, that's for sure. So I mean, like this... I think to a degree, like, they have to do it over the top just because they're trying to show that, like, they're trying to make it as stark of a contrast in certain moments as they can. It's like, oh man, he is super hopeful that things are going to be okay and blah blah blah, and it's like, turns out, oh no, your life is crap, everybody hates you. It's very interesting. I'm glad that we're finally peeking into the sister's life and seeing, you know, what kind of sin that she represents. The rabbits are freaking creepy, though. Oh my god. Like, the most disturbing rabbits I have almost ever seen. I don't know. I think the reason why I have it as high as I do is because I have certain expectations based on Takopi. And to an extent, this is like Takopi light. Yeah. Is the best way to describe it right now. And for that reason, that's why I can definitely understand why people don't like it. Because, especially if they didn't like Takopi, they're probably not going to like this manga, because it's very similar in tone and whatnot. Not as dark yet. And even me saying that, I don't know that it's necessarily even going to get to the levels of dark that Takopi did get to. Depending on how we explore the parents, right? Because it's in Shonen Jump.
Yeah, and
like you can only do so much.
Shonen Jump has like gore and everything like that, but Takopi is not gore. It's something much more brutal. It is Pun Pun levels of brutal, if not worse, in my opinion. I think it is worse than Pun Pun. So I don't see that.
That's saying something.
Yeah. So I don't see Shonen Jump letting Tizen 5, I think is his name, or her name, go as far as they did in Takopi, right from chapter 1. Like, Takopi was too much.
And it doesn't have to be. I think as long as they continue exploring the mystery side of things, which is great in my opinion. We don't really have a hardcore mystery series in Shonen Jump right now. You have certain series that have like elements of mystery, but like that is the focus of this manga. I think if they continue to, you know, go into it, I think it can be really enjoyable. I don't think it has to go as dark as Takopi did, as long as they build upon the characters well. So I mean, that's the thing. Like, we'll have to wait and see, especially with how the sister develops. The explanation for what's going on with what she's doing right now, I think, can absolutely make or break what we're seeing. But I think at least, again, speaking for where the bar was this year, it makes sense why it got as high as it did. And for me, at least, my expectations are higher, and that's why it is where it is.
Yeah. My expectations are really high, but again, it has done some stuff. I don't know. It's just weird, like some interactions, like between the main character, the boy, Tsubasa, I think is his name, and like his best friend. I really didn't like the relationship, the way it developed. It felt a little bit awkward there. That was mostly my problem. The ending of the last chapter was very cringe, but I think that was the point.
Yes.
So I am okay with that. I do want to say, like, in as a positive, you were talking about like the contrast between the good parts, like the things that are happening, then they're just like, oh, it's so bad. I really like how the mangaka shows that through the panels and the pages, especially like the double spreads are really cool. There was this one, it really isn't much to it, but there was like this one where the two kids are stalking his sister and they're like looking towards the other page, and it's just so beautiful. I think the mangaka really knows how to do like some really nice panels.
I guess at least a final point on my end. I definitely understand where you're coming from with the awkwardness around the main character. I think the unfortunate thing for him is that like he was dealing with just the shock of the situation, and in those moments there were parts of the old him that cracked through. Where he was just like, wait, what are these words, what are these actions coming from me, kind of thing. And then despite that, the amnesiac hopeful version of him is trying to, you know, stay in control and be like, you know, especially with the best friend-ish character, like he realizes that he might have certain keys to figure out, you know, who/what he was, how things happened. So I appreciate that he still has that character, and even still, it's a very awkward relationship between them, because it's supposed to be like the years of what happened cannot just be erased all of a sudden. Like, even if he has amnesia, it doesn't mean like the trauma went away of what happened. So to an extent, I appreciate the awkwardness because it's supposed to be awkward. If all of a sudden they were just like, oh yeah, we're just the best of bros again, that would have felt worse.
Yeah, I didn't want that. I don't know. Maybe the relationship will grow on me. And I think the most interesting part to me is really to figure out who they were, and that little glimpse that we got from him was very interesting. Oh, my voice is dying. But we're almost there. On number 2, we got Ruri Dragon. Number 2 on the voters list, number 2 on mine, and number 3 on yours. It got a total of 97 points, 101 positive and 4 negative.
How dare those 4 people?
It was really... I think this, like, the negative points for Ruri Dragon was the lowest amount of points that something received for anything. I don't know, there's just like so much love towards the series is what I saw. And most people voted for it. Of course, there was one that got more votes. We'll get into that.
What? No.
Oh no. I wonder which. But yeah, I feel like it is amazing due to the fact that it only got like 6 chapters. And it could have just, you know, been forgotten, but people really loved it, and it wasn't just a case of people tuning in because it was on hiatus or anything like that, because people were really loving it from chapter 1. And at least from the Western side, I don't think I've seen a pure comedy manga. I'm not gonna call it gag, because I feel like gag manga is a little bit different, but
this was slice of life.
Yeah.
This wasn't gag. So, and you can have gags in slice of life, but this was a slice of life manga.
Yeah, but I feel like for a Shonen Jump manga that leans more towards, you know, the slice of life and the comedy, I never seen so much like praise from the Western side, because not even, again, the gag manga generally get trashed, but even like stuff like Witch Watch, Chokyu Demon, things like that, they don't tend to be well received. At least recently, I know there's like older series that are, but recent series they really don't. And it was really interesting to me to see people really liking Ruri Dragon. I think that's because even the way that it does comedy, it is not as loud as we are used to from gag manga. It's not Roboku where everyone is screaming, or Ichigoki where everyone is screaming. It's very deadpan. It is very, very wholesome, and I think people just got attached to that. The art is also really, really great.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
I mean, to your point, like, even when the one dude's hair caught on fire because Ruri accidentally breathed fire, it's just like, stuff happens.
Yeah.
He's like, okay. Like,
it is very deadpan.
It is one where, again, going back to the high school family, no, I agree. Not everything has to have romance. Sometimes you can just have slice of life, and that is fine.
Yeah. So the elephant in the room with this series is that it's on hiatus. It got 6 chapters, if I'm not wrong.
6 or 7 chapters. It went on break for a week, and then it came back with 1 chapter. And then it has been literally radio silence since then. Shonen Jump has given us nothing. Okay, so it's had 6 chapters. That is how much it's had.
Yeah.
I just looked it up.
I felt like it, but you're right. There was like a bunch of chapters, and there was like a week or so where people were like, "Oh, already? It's getting a break already." And then, so the only news that we got from Ruri Dragon was the volume release, which did. I haven't looked at the sales, but I know it did stupidly well.
Gangbusters on sales. It was like, it was the highest selling volume 1 of a manga on release since My Hero Academia, and it beat My Hero Academia. And I honestly can't help but wonder, like, obviously it had popularity when it was being printed. Like, people were regularly commenting on the sheer amount of view counts it had in Japan on the web service. Like, millions of views on each chapter. But I can't help but to wonder if the sales would have been a little bit less had the health of the mangaka not been in the forefront of a lot of people's minds. And that thought of, I'm going to show my support for this because I am showing my support for the mangaka. It might not have been a lot, but I do still think it was a factor in it. So, at the end of the day, Ruri Dragon is not canceled. There's no way in hell that they're letting go of Ruri Dragon. The only question is in what kind of format we'll see it come back. Only because, just given the state of the magazine, it could come back if it wanted to, but will the author's health allow it to follow a weekly format? And that's the thing, we don't know. Like, there has been nothing on like the author's health, like no details on what's going on. Obviously, it's bad enough that we haven't seen them since July, I think it was, if I read that right, when the last time the series was updated. So we're now in January. Like, we are at the 6-month mark in terms of like Ruri Dragon being gone. July 24th was the last time it updated. What's going on?
Yeah.
What is happening with any of this? Shonen Jump is not telling us anything.
I feel like Japan in general tend to be like very secretive when it comes to that. I would have liked, even if it wasn't from Shonen Jump, at least like the Twitter account of the author to be like, hey, I'm alive. I don't know. Not asking like for details on their health, like, whatever, because they may not want to disclose whatever they have. But I would like some information at least.
Right.
And yeah, I don't think it will come back to Shonen Jump, and I don't think it should come back to Weekly Shonen Jump.
I agree.
I feel like either Jump Plus or Jump SQ, if it can handle a monthly rather than a weekly, because I feel like monthly is so much easier because you got 4 times the time. Normally the chapters are not 4 times longer. They tend to be either double or
2
just,
to 3 times.
Yeah. It's not, I don't think it's even like 2 to 3 times. Like 20 chapters, 20 pages changes like 30 to 40. Maybe, I mean, there's some like
depending on the series, there are ones that like they'll be in the 50s. But
yeah.
Okay, it depends.
Yeah.
You could be Gantz E and have the chapter length of a regular weekly series, but only release monthly and just.
I mean, I would be okay with Ruri Dragon doing that if that is what the mangaka can do. Like, I don't feel like there's a need to force themselves weekly. I also just want to point out that Shonen Jump has a little bit of a curse going on, I feel like. Because if we think like, at least like Weekly Shonen Jump, if we think like some of their biggest successes, Act Age got cancelled for really horrible situations. Chainsaw Man left the magazine. Jujutsu Kaisen is constantly on break due to the mangaka's health. Ruri Dragon got on break right now as well. Just talking about.
My Hero and Black Clover for the health of the author as well.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of their big stuff, either there's health problems, which shows that they are not doing things well. Not everyone can be Boichi. Who's the I forgot his name, the mangaka from Fairy Tail, Mashima.
Hiro Mashima, yeah.
And not everyone is Boichi or Mashima. Like, those guys, I feel like they're not human the way they can just like do 2 to 3 manga at the same time.
No,
you shouldn't expect that from most people. Even like Oda works. I don't know how that man is still alive. You shouldn't force him to have this life. That's what I think.
They need to have more series in the magazine so that they can give more authors a break on any given week.
Yeah.
And it needs to be extended to more people because the vast majority of series in the magazine have never had a break other than the built-in breaks that the magazine has.
Yeah. You only get a break if you or a big title or you're dying, I feel like. Or both.
Or if you're a big enough author, because Elusive Samurai has had breaks. And, I mean, Mashal has had breaks. Undead Unluck has not. Sakamoto Days has not. Blue Box has not.
Yeah.
I mean, to be fair, they could have, a better system in place where they don't need to have breaks. But that doesn't mean that they shouldn't be given the opportunity.
Yeah. I feel like with Elusive Samurai, Matsui can just be like, "Hey, I'm one of your biggest authors. I haven't failed once.
That's it.
Like, name me a manga of mine that got cancelled. You can't." They're like, "Fine." I mean,
we get it. Fine. Take a break.
Yeah. I don't know what I'm looking. I guess it's just for stats. But number 1 is the Akane-Banashi. It got number 1 on the voters list. It got number 1 on my list. It got number 1 on yours list. And it got 157 total, which ranked 5 negative points and an absurd number of 162 positive votes. Having in mind that we got around 200 votes total that I could count, 165 voted for Akane-Banashi. So
yeah,
it is insane.
Yeah, more than 3/4 of the vote went towards Akane-Banashi.
Yeah. and it makes sense when we have in mind like even the Rogers-based Manga of the Year stream. The one manga that got the public vote from all of these was Akane-Banashi. I even thought like Ruri Dragon was more popular, to be fair, because especially the sales of the first volume and everything, but it's clear that it is not. Akane-Banashi is sweeping.
Yeah.
It's easily the manga of the year of the rookies. Manga of the year for a lot of people apparently as well, just overall. And I can see why. It's great. The main character is amazing. I was a little bit scared if I was gonna like her when I read the first chapter, because I ended up the first chapter thinking like, oh, I really like the dad character. I really didn't care for Akane. Once we get introduced to her, like I think like by chapter 3, I was already sold on the character. I think she's great. The side cast has been amazing, and it's one of those cases where it taps on the same reasons why I love Bakuman. It's one of my favorite Shonen Jump series, like top 3 or top 4. Akane-Banashi really taps on a lot of what make that series good as well. It is of course different, it is of course unique to it. But yeah, it's great.
Yep. It's another series that it delves into a topic that has not really been explored previously, and so a lot of our enjoyment is tied into learning about it. So I think Bakuman is a great example of that, because Bakuman was, at the very least, the first manga series to really highlight the goings-on of the manga industry, or at least the Shueisha side of things. And so Akane-Banashi is doing the same thing, but for Rakugo. Not saying that Rakugo hasn't been covered by other manga or anime in the past, but like this is like the big modern one that's really going into it. To the points that you made, Akane herself is great. I think she's a great character. There's layers to her character that make her very interesting. She's not a pushover, but she has a lot of respect for the craft, and her father, her master, other masters, not other masters if they're a jerk or whatnot, and that leads to its own, interesting plot development in that regard. The villain is great, if you want to call him a villain. Honestly, he's just the main antagonist. Yeah. And in a year, 2022, where it was a year, in my opinion, of the antagonists, he was a great one. Because you start off the series hating him for good reason, but once you finally get to the chapter where he explains why he did what he did, you start thinking to yourself like, crap, I hate this guy's guts, but he makes really good points. Like, I hate that you're right, that you're making me feel and agree that you're right in this situation. And I think that's something that it did really well. The visualization that we've been getting in some of the more recent chapters has been great. That's something that I definitely relate to. Shokugeki no Soma is what I'm going to throw out there. Food Wars. It reminds me of that to an extent of like, oh, we are getting this visual representation of what's going on, despite the fact that like they're literally just sitting there on a stage. Not even sitting. They're like on their knees on a stage and giving a performance. But they're doing a performance in such a way that like it is visually represented by other things that are going on, and I think that's really well done. It's hard not to put this at number 1 just because nothing touched it this year that came out in Shonen Jump. There's nothing that touched it this year. Ruri Dragon, yeah, honestly speaking, it could have taken the number 1 spot had it not stopped 6 chapters in. I genuinely believe that, because it had a lot of momentum going for it. But Akane-Banashi had a lot of momentum in terms of the recommendations and the people that were supporting it. So many people were supporting it. It's not even funny. Oda himself was supporting Akane-Banashi because of how good it was.
I feel like a lot of these support, to a degree, was also because of Rakugo. Like, a lot of people, who were into the craft really liked the way that Akane-Banashi showed their profession, I guess. Mm-hmm. They were, I think, like, I don't know if it was the first or second volume. It was just like a collage of like all the big Rakugoka, like with the volume on hand, and I thought that was pretty cool. Mm-hmm. But yeah, on your point of the visualization, yes, I was quite afraid of that, because I think manga that are about acting, which this one, for all it is about acting, really need, in my opinion, to have that good visualization. For example, and I know some people will disagree with me, I think Oshinoko does not. With the exception of like maybe 1-2 panels here or there, I think it does not really show like this character is acting, is representing other characters. I think ActAge did it really, really well. I think Akane-Banashi does it not as well as ActAge, not as well as my personal favorite, which is Kasane, which is not a Shonen Jump manga. It's I don't know what magazine it is. It's a seinen manga. It's an oldie one. I think Akane-Banashi still is really, really, really good at it. And it's not just the point where you said about the visualization. It does have that where it shows the character, the story of what is happening, and that does wonders in making us understand the story. I think even when it focuses on the characters, the fact that it has like different balloons for each character that is the character is representing, different their expressions and everything, really helps give that sense of this guy or this girl is using like the bare minimum and is still like changing characters and acting really, really well.
The one thing I guess I will disagree on with the whole just Oshinoko thing is that they're taking actual characters and they are in settings themselves. So it's not necessarily a one-to-one argument, just because again with Akane-Banashi, they're literally on a stage by themselves, so they need to do things to make it visually more interesting, because otherwise you are just seeing them on a stage. But I digress.
But that goes back to my point of ActAge and Kasane, where there was like something in the character where you could tell when, I forgot her name of the main character in ActAge, but when she changed, when she got into like acting mode,
when the flip
switch. Felt it.
Switch flipped.
Yeah.
Yep.
you felt that. I don't think Oshinoko does it. That is my personal opinion.
Fair enough.
Overall, I was not a big fan of Oshinoko. I still don't think it's bad, but I don't know. I think it was overhyped to me. And it partially was your fault.
To be fair, there are more people that agree with me than on you on this part.
That is true. that is
just saying. You are also the guy that does not like Jujutsu Kaisen. So
yeah.
You are also the guy that does not like Hunter x Hunter.
I don't. So no, I don't. It's not that I don't like Hunter x Hunter. It's just, I simply
you refuse to read it.
I refuse to read it. It's different.
Only marginally so.
I'm not sure if you want to give any other thoughts on Akane-Banashi.
No, I'm excited to see where it goes from here. Honestly speaking, it's not in any danger of being canceled anytime soon, if at all. The foundation that is built, honestly speaking, the series is going to go probably as long as the mangaka wants it to go. because there's been enough outpouring of love and whatnot. Once you get that Oda seal of approval, I mean, what can you do? Like, it's not going anywhere. Anything else on this list, I'm gonna be blunt, has a strong chance of being axed from the magazine if it has not been axed so far. And that is just because, unfortunately, I've said it time and time again, the magazine is full. Yes, there are series that are ending, but they are ending on more or less their own accord at this point. Yes, we know that My Hero Academia is ending. It could end at any point this year. They are not going to make My Hero end earlier than they want it to. Because why would you prematurely end something that is selling hundreds of thousands of volumes?
Yeah, Ashima got the most positive votes, so it was number 1 on the voters list last year. And I think it ended up, I think, on 3rd overall. But I'm pretty sure we settled something along the lines that it's probably not gonna get cancelled because it was popular at the time. We didn't have sales. It was before the 8th chapter mark. We were wrong. And it can very much happen. The same thing with Cipher and Ichinose. It's not because it has a big order behind it. Tyson 5 specifically is on the exact same situation as Yukinaba or something. I don't remember his name. Hunaba?
I don't know if you want to necessarily call it the same situation, because like with Hell's Paradise, it picked up steam towards the end for sure, but it wasn't necessarily one where, like, at least on the West, there weren't a lot of people that were aware of it right away. Whereas with Takopi, it just hit right away and it was a limited series. So you can say that they were in a similar boat, but they're not in the exact same boat.
That's fair. But yeah, they were both like Shonen Jump Plus mangaka that moved in with a success in Jump Plus and moved now into Shonen Jump. Fujimoto did that well. I don't know if any other mangaka did. I think those 3 are the only ones that I remember moving from Jump Plus to the regular.
No, that was the other person that did that was Shugamaru's author, or at least that was one.
Yeah, and then Roboko technically also.
Roboko did Nine Dragons Ball Parade, I think, did as well, a bunch of or at least part of that group.
Yeah,
because it was an author-artist combo, and I want to say the artist
wasn't even from
Jump Plus.
Maybe I remember the artist worked on different magazines. It wasn't Rookie.
Right, it was one or the other, but I mean, that being said, yeah, it's who knows, and that's we don't know. We that's don't. True. We're not Jump authors, or we're not Jump authors. Editors. We're not Jump editors. We're not in Japan, so we're not seeing the things that we don't have confirmations of ourselves. We ourselves can only see TOC data. We ourselves can only see volume sales data and certain things from Japan, but we're not seeing any kind of promotions that are only there for Japanese people. We're not seeing what the reader surveys are. We're not seeing a lot of things.
Yeah. There's a lot of things that even the Japanese don't see. Just Shueisha.
So there are a lot of things that could be at play too, but out of everything that's here, excuse me, out of everything that's here, Akane-Banashi is the only one that is safe. Period.
Yeah.
That's just how it is. Anything else can go at any period in time if Jump wills that to be the case. So enjoy what you can. Enjoy it for as long as it's there. But please do not grow so attached to the point where you are in absolute disbelief if it gets cut, because anything can be from this roster, and it sucks to have to say that, especially with how well 2021 was in comparison to 2022, because essentially 2021 filled the rest of the roster for what was missing in Jump. So just how it is.
Yeah, I don't even know if you have space for another series to be big without
not without cutting other series. And that's just how it is. And you have some series that could be cut. Obviously High School Family will get cut before Roboco gets cut. That's just how it is.
Yeah. I don't think Roboco is going to get cut. I'm just going to be honest.
I don't think it is anytime soon either. But just saying.
I think it's going to be that series where it's going to last for so long that's going to be a staple of the magazine, and it's going to be like 10 years. It's going to be in the magazine, and nobody will care at that point because it is going to be the Kochikame of the magazine. That is my prediction. Again, I might be wrong. But
honestly speaking, you could be right, because obviously they love it enough in Japan to keep it with how it is. So, and that's all that matters. Unfortunately, past gag series, the only other one that's in the magazine right now that doesn't have a confirmed anime at this point is P6. Or sorry, it's not the only one.
You're not gonna ask.
P6 doesn't have one. The new stuff from 2021 doesn't have stuff. So the things that are in danger of being cut that don't have anime would be P6 and maybe Witch Watch, but Witch Watch does well enough that I don't see that happening anytime soon.
Do you think the Elusive Samurai could be, having in mind that the sales are a little bit decreasing?
But Elusive Samurai is still selling more than Witch Watch is.
Is it? Okay.
Elusive Samurai is still selling upwards of 50,000 volumes on any given, or 50,000 copies of any given volume, if not more. So, and that being said, of the ones that do have anime that have been in decline, Undead Unluck being one of them, Undead Unluck sales took a massive hit. They peaked around 50,000 copies, and even like the last one hit 20,000, I think. So it needs an anime as soon as possible. It needs it out. It needs it out yesterday. To see if that can scrounge up sales. But Mission Yozakura, you can feel like that one is starting to wrap up as well. Or at least it could wrap up, given its plot progression. But again, Jump is more likely to cut newbies that just have not performed than they are likely to cut, series that have had average to middling sales.
Makes sense. But yeah, I just feel like, just to end, like I said before, it goes back to how it was. I feel like there's definitely like some years in Jump where series it doesn't matter how good a newbie series is, it's gonna get axed, which sucks. I feel like they don't need to constantly be putting batches and batches and batches. That is just my opinion. But they're not gonna stop anytime soon, having in mind that they're doing this for 50 years and other magazines have been doing it for even longer. Contrary to popular belief, I don't think Shonen Jump was the one that started this trend. So yeah, I think that is it.
I agree. We've been at it for long enough, that's for sure.
Yeah, I'm gonna cut maybe some parts, but this video is probably gonna end up being there completely unedited. So if you reached this point and you haven't checked out Axel's channel, go check him out. He's back. He's been on
I'd be hard pressed to see anyone that has lasted this long into the video not being subscribed to me, but if you're not,
I mean, you've been on hiatus for a little while, so I feel like there's probably a bunch of people in my
little while.
A little while.
I was gone for an entire year.
Yeah, so I mean, there's probably a decent chunk of the audience that I got this year that may not know you, because last year we did a bunch of collabs together. This year we also ended up not doing it. I think the last we did was this video last year. So yeah, if you don't know Axel, go check him out. He's back.
I'm back
with a vengeance. And yeah, I'm gonna put a video on Axel's face right now. It's gonna be my best and worst manga of the year, of last year. And if Axel has published a video similar, eventually I'm gonna put it on my face. It's not out yet, but it should be soon. So if you watched it till here, thank you very much, and I'll see you next video.